All right. 28. Out from a round red planet, a little white shaft of fairy's arrow shot into an apple, June 10th, 1892, a light like a little searchlight projecting from the limb of Mars. Upon July 11th and 13th, it was seen again by Campbell and Hussey. August 3rd, 1892, climacteric opposition of Mars. Upon August 12th, 1892, flashes were seen by many persons in the sky of England. See English Mechanic, Volume 56, at Manchester. So like signals were they, or so unlike anything commonly known as auroral were they, that Albert Buss mistook them for flashes from a lighthouse. They were seen at Dewsbury, described by a correspondent in the English Mechanic, who wrote, I have never seen such an appearance of an aurora. Rapid flashes reported from Londonborough. A shining triangle in a dark circle. Ooh. In L'Astronomie 1888-75, Dr. Klein publishes an account of Despesian's observation of November 23rd, 1887, a luminous triangle on the floor of Plato. Dr. Klein says it was an effect of sunlight. In this period, there were in cities of the United States some of the most astonishing effects at night in the history of this earth. If Rigel should run for the presidency of Orion, and if the stars and the great nebula should start to march, there would be a spectacle like those that Grover Cleveland called forth in the United States in this period. So then, at least conceivably, something similar upon the moon. Flakes of light moving towards Plato this night of November 23rd, 1887, from all the other craters of the moon, a blizzard of shining points gathering into light drifts in Plato. Then the denizens of Aristarchus and of Kepler and dwellers from the lunar Alps, each raising his torch, marching upon a triangular path, making the triangle shine in the dark. Conceivably. Other formations have been seen in Plato. But according to my records, this symbol and shown in the dark had never been seen before and has not been seen since. Never mind. About 2 years later, a demonstration of a more exclusive kind, assemblage of all the undertakers of the moon. They stood in a circular formation surrounded by virgins in their nightgowns, and in nightgowns as nightgowns should be. An appearance in Plinius, September 13th, 1889, was reported by Professor Thury of Geneva, a black spot with an intensely white border. March 30th, 1889, a black spot that was seen for the first time by Gulderbert near the center of Copernicus. May 11th, 1889, an object as black as ink upon a rampart of Glacendi. It had never been reported before. At the time of the next lunation, it was not seen again. March 30th, 1889, a new black spot in Plinius. The starlight light of Aristarchus. It is a long time since latest preceding appearance. May 7th, 1867. Then it cannot be attributed to commonplace lunar circumstances. The light was seen November 7th, 1891 by M. de Aduja of the Observatory of Lisbon, a very distinct luminous point. Upon April 1st, 1893, a shaft of light was seen projecting from the moon by M. de Moraes in the Azores. A similar appearance was seen September 25th, 1893 at Paris by M. Garbeau. Another association like that of 1884 in the English Mechanic, 55-310, a correspondent writes that upon May 6, 1892, he saw a shining point, not polar, upon Venus. Upon the 13th of August, 1892, the same object conceivably was seen at a short distance from Venus, an unknown luminous object like a star of the 7th magnitude that was seen close to Venus by Professor Barnard. Upon August 24th, 1895, in the period of primary maximum brilliance of Venus, a luminous object is said was seen in the sky in daytime by someone in Donegal, Ireland. Upon this day, according to the Scientific American 73-374, a boy, Robert Alcorn, saw a large luminous object falling from the sky. It exploded near him. The boy's experience was like Smith More houses. He put his hands over his face. There was a second explosion, shattering his fingers. According to Professor George M. Minchin, no substance of the object that had exploded could be found. Whether there be relation or not, something was seen in the sky of England a week later. In the London Times, September 4th, 1895, Dr. J.A.H. Murray writes that at Oxford, a few minutes before 8 p.m., August 31st, 1895, he saw in the sky a luminous object considerably larger than Venus of great brilliance emerge from behind treetops and sail slowly eastward. It moves as if driven in a strong wind and disappeared behind other trees. The fact that it so perceptibly grew fainter as it receded seems to imply that it was not a great elevation, and some favors our terrestrial origin, though I am unable to conceive how anything artificial could have presented the same appearance. In the Times of the 6th, someone who had read Dr. Murray's letter says that about the same evening, he, in London, had seen the object moving eastward so slowly that he had thought it might be a fire balloon from a neighboring park. Another correspondent who had not read Dr. Murray's letter, his own dated September 3rd, writes from a place not stated that about 8:20 p.m. August 31st, he had seen a star-like object moving eastward, remaining in sight 4 or 5 minutes. Then someone who, about 8 p.m. same evening, while driving to Scarborough Station, had seen a large shooting star, astonishing him because of its leisurely... Whoa. Wait. Because of its leisurely rate. So different from the velocity of the ordinary shooting star. There are two other accounts of objects that were seen in the sky at Bath and at Ramsgate, but not about this time. I have looked them up in local newspapers, finding that they were probably meteors. In the Oxford Times, September 7th, Dr. Murray's letter to the London Times is reprinted with the comments, "We would suggest to the learned doctor that the supposed meteor was one of the fire balloons let off with the allotments show." Allotments show, yeah. Let it be that when allotments are shown, balloons are always sent up, and that this editor did not merely have a notion to this effect. Our data are concerned with an object that was seen at about the same time at Oxford, about 50 miles southeast of Oxford and about 170 miles northeast of Oxford, blah, 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 with a fourth observation that we cannot place. And in broader terms, our data are concerned with a general expression that objects like ships have been seen to sail close to this Earth at times when the planet Venus is nearest to this Earth. September 18th, 1895, inferior conjunction of Venus. Still in the same period, there were in London two occurrences, perhaps like that of Dongal. London Morning Post, November 16th, 1895, that at noon, November 15th, an alarming explosion occurred somewhere near Fenchurch Street, London. No damage was done. No trace could be found of anything that had exploded. An hour later, near the Mansion House, which is not far from Fenchurch Street, occurred a still more violent explosion. The streets filled with persons who had run from buildings are there, and there was investigation, but not a trace could be found of anything that had exploded. It is said that somebody saw something falling. However, the deadly explainers, usually astronomers, but this time policemen, haunt or arrest us. In the Daily News, though it is not said that a trace of anything that had exploded had been found, it is said that the explanation by the police was that somebody had mischievously placed in the streets fog signals, which had been exploded by passing vehicles. Observation by Mueller of Nijmegen, Holland, an unknown luminous object that, about 3 weeks later, was seen near Venus. Upon the 28th of April, 1897, Venus was in inferior conjunction. In Popular Astronomy 5-55, it is said that many persons had written to the editor telling of airships that had been seen about this time. The editor writes that some of the observations were probably upon the planet Venus, but that others probably related to toy balloons, which were provided with various colored lights. The first group of our data I take from dispatches to the New York Sun, April 2nd, 11th, 16th, 18th. 1st of April, the mysterious light in the sky of Kansas City, something like a powerful searchlight. It was directed towards the Earth, traveling east at a rate of 60 miles an hour. About a week later, something was seen in Chicago. Chicago's alleged airship is believed to be a myth, in spite of the fact that a great many persons say that they have seen the mysterious night wanderer. A crowd gazed at strange lights from the top of a downtown skyscraper, and Evanston students declare they saw the swaying red and green lights. April 16th, reported from Benton, Texas, but this time as a dark object that passed across the moon. Reports from other towns in Texas: Fort Worth, Dallas, Marshall, Ennis, and Beaumont. It was shaped like a Mexican cigar, large in the middle and small at both ends, with great wings resembling those of an enormous butterfly. It was brilliantly illuminated by the rays of two great searchlights and was sailing in a southeasterly direction, with the velocity of the wind presenting a magnificent appearance. New York Herald, April 11th. That at Chicago, night of April 9th and 10th. Until 2 o'clock in the morning, thousands of amazed spectators declared that the lights seen in the northwest were those of an airship or some floating object miles above the earth. Some declared they saw two cigar-shaped objects and great wings. It is said that a white light, a red light, and a green light had been seen. There does seem to be an association between this object and the planet Venus, which upon this night was less than 3 weeks from nearest approach to this Earth. Nevertheless, this object could not have been Venus, which had set hours earlier. Professor Ho of the Northwestern University is quoted that the people had mistaken the airship Alpha Uranus for an airship. Professor Hu explains that astronomical effects may have given a changing red and green appearance to this star. Alpha Uranus, as a northern star, is some more astronomy by the astronomers who teach astronomy daytimes and then relax when night comes. The atmospheric conditions would pick out this one star and not affect other brilliant stars in Orion is more astronomy. At any rate, the standardized explanation that the thing was Venus disappears. There were other explainers, some who said that he knew of an airship, terrestrial one, that had sailed from San Francisco and had reached Chicago. Herald, April 12th, said that the object had been photographed in Chicago, a cigar-shaped silken bag, with a framework. Other explanations and identifications, not one of them applying to this object, if it be accepted that it was seen in places as far apart as Illinois and Texas. It is said that upon March 29th, the thing had been seen in Omaha as a bright light sailing to the northwest, and that, for a few moments, upon the following night, it had been seen in Denver. It is said that upon the night of the 9th, dispatches had bombarded the newspaper offices of Chicago from many places in Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Iowa, and Wisconsin. Professor George Hu maintains that the object seen is Alpha Uranus. April 14th, story: veritable observation yarn hoax dispatch from Carlinsville, Illinois. That upon the afternoon of the 10th, the airship had alighted upon a farm but had sailed away when approached, cigar-shaped with wings and a canopy on top. April 15th, shower of telegrams, development of jokers and explainers, thing identified as an airship invented by someone in Dodge City, Kansas, identified as an airship invented by someone in Brule, Wisconsin, stories of letters found on farms purporting to have been dropped by the unknown aeronauts, terrestrial ones, jokers in various towns sending up balloons with lights attached, one laborious joker who rigged up something that looked like an airship and put it in a vacant lot and told that it had fallen there, yarn or observation, upon a queer-looking boat that had been seen to rise from the water of Lake Erie, continued reports upon a moving object in the sky and its red and green lights. Against such an alliance as this between the jokers and the astronomers, I see small chance of our data. The chance is in the future. If in April 1897 extramundane voyagers did visit this Earth, likely enough they will visit again, and then the alliance against the data may be guarded against. New York Herald, April 20th, that upon the 19th, about 9 p.m. in Sistersville, West Virginia, a luminous object had approached the town from the northwest, flashing brilliant red, white, and green lights, and an examination with strong glasses left an impression of a huge cone-shaped arrangement, 180 feet long, with large fins on either side. My own general impression. Night of October 12th, 1492. If I have the right, some night in October 1492, and savages upon an island beach are gazing out at lights that they had never seen before. The indications are that voyagers from some other world are nearby. But the wise men explain. One of the most nearly sure expressions in this book is upon how they explain. They explain in terms of the familiar. For instance, after all that is spiritual in a fish, after all that is spiritual in a fish passes away, the rest of him begins to shine nights. So there are three big old dead things out in the water.